Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of the Create Stuff Podcast. I am your host, Shaun Saxum. A few things before we get started. If you'd like to support this podcast, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Usually I would link my Patreon here, and that will still be in the description. But I would more highly recommend you check out some of the nonprofit charities I've linked in the description, because I think they more relate to the idea of this episode, and frankly, I think it would be more helpful to have some donations go there. And let me know if you do make a donation to one of those in the comments, and that would be really, really cool of you. Yeah, also, this is usually streamed live at twitch.tv/Shaun Saxum. This one was not, for reasons, but you should follow me anyways. Links in the description. All other things in the description as well. I have a Discord server. It's pretty cool. You should go follow that. Just got a notification on my phone. I hope that did not pick up. Yeah, if you join my Discord server, you can get a role that'll make it so you get mentioned every time a new episode comes out, or there's an update in general, really. And you might also get some sneak peeks and extra stuff, you know, little things like that. It's fun. If you would prefer, this podcast is also available on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts if you do that for some insane reason. And also, you should check out my other podcast I recently started, SCP Authors Anomalous. Also, my interview with DJ Cactus, which was supposed to be episode 10, has been highly delayed for a number of reasons. It's just a lot of really bad luck between both of us. But it'll come out eventually, I swear. We still need to record part 2. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the podcast. All right. Welcome to the, I want to say this is going to be the, 11th episode of the Create Stuff Podcast. Kind of close. Today, my guest is the blind artist, John Bramblitt.
Thanks so much, Shaun. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. So, like, we'll just get right into it. What is, like, what's your story?
Oh, man, well, that's that's funny. It stumped me a little bit when you said that. I don't know. I'm a painter. I'm an artist. I'm the first blind muralist in the world. But I do a lot of work in the studio. I'm a portrait painter. I'm a studio painter, and I work with museums. I do all this stuff. But I'm blind. I lost my eyesight about 20 years ago, and so I'm a visually impaired visual artist, a non-visual visual artist, which is an oxymoron. It's a mouthful too. It's a lot to say. But
it definitely is.
Yeah. So you know, I just work as an artist. I'm a painter, and that's what I've been doing ever since college.
Okay. Super cool. Sounds really challenging.
It is, you know, it's funny. When I first started painting, I thought I was out of my mind because there weren't really blind painters. I think there might have been a guy in Turkey, but this was like 20 years ago, and I didn't know about this guy, and I didn't find about him until a long time later. And I was in college, and I've had epilepsy my whole life, and then I found out that I was losing my eyesight in college, and I thought everything was over. I thought, you know, everything was just done. Like, that was it. I didn't know anything about blindness, and I thought I had to leave school. I thought everything was just done, and I was really fortunate, though, because at the school I went to, they had a really good Office of Disability accommodations, and I went by to say goodbye. You know, I mean, I'm going there. They say I'm losing my eyesight. They were like, heck no, John, you can do whatever you want. Like, you know, they made it so I was able to stay in school. I was able to get all the help I needed, and but so I was really fortunate, you know, then. But I think I could draw before I could walk. Like, art's always been a big part of my life. And growing up, I had a lot of health problems, and art was always my way of dealing with it. You know, all the way up until college, until when, you know, I lost my eyesight. I didn't think I'd be able to do art anymore. But, you know, it just goes to show what you know, how smart I was at the time. I had no idea. But man, yeah, I don't know. What do you want to know? I'll talk about anything.
Okay, I actually do have a little list of questions here, and I want to quickly say a very big thank you to some of the previous artists I've had on this podcast, especially Dropster, Wolfie the Witch, Kazoo Does Art, Public Spam Account, Amblerose Moon, and Arodia, because I asked everybody for questions that I've had on, all the artists I've had, because I thought it would give a little bit more of a unique perspective, because I'm not an artist myself. Great idea. So Yeah, they all asked some very good questions, and pretty much all of them are included here.
Ooh,
Except
man.
Public
Awesome.
Spam Account's question about what your favorite type of cheese is, which I have decided to not include.
Brilliant,
Sorry,
brilliant.
Public Spam Account. Sorry, PSA. You already got your 30 minutes of talking about cheese on my podcast. So, like, why? What about art is, like, so appealing to you?
Oh man, art is really special. It's, I never thought. Well, after I lost my eyesight and I started painting, I never thought anybody would ever see a painting of mine. But I mean, it wasn't even an idea. It was just my way of dealing with the anger and the depression. And the wonderful thing about art is that it just cuts to the core of you. I mean, it's so deep. Growing up, I had a lot of health problems. I had a kidney removed by the time I was 7. I was born with epilepsy, and it developed into severe epilepsy and had some neurological problems. And all my childhood, I was in and out of hospitals. And if I was having a bad day, I had a wonderful family, I had friends, but another way of dealing with the bad days was art. I could draw, and art will take you out of whatever that you're in, and it gives you a way to have some control over things. And if I was having a good day, art's a great way to celebrate a good day. So I think I could draw before I could walk, and every day of my life, and I mean every day I would draw, every day. And I'm a huge nerd, so I always have been. So I always took classes, and I read every book I could, and I just tried to, just soak up as much knowledge as I could from other people that were into art. And I did that, and by the time I was in college, I could draw the blueprints for a house. I could do a portrait. Cartoons, anime, all these different things. I love to draw anything that I could draw. I didn't paint though, because I didn't think I'd be a good painter. So everything was just sort of black and white and gray. It was a lot of graphite, a lot of drawing, using pencils and pens and things like that. But art is just it's just incredible in how and to be honest, if it wasn't for art, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like I would have lost myself. Whenever I lost my eyesight in college, I was so angry and I was so depressed, and I thought I knew what depression was like, but I set a personal record, I think, for the amount of anger and the amount of depression that I hit. Then it was just I really peaked out. And one of the things though, whenever you lose your eyesight, you start learning how to do everything in new ways. And one of the things you learn is orientation and mobility training. And that's where, if you've ever seen a blind person with a white cane, that's the training that you learn to be able to use the white cane. And you learn how to travel independently so that you can get around your house. You learn how to trail. You learn how to orient yourself to everything. You also learn how to travel independently across the city. So you learn how to cross streets all by yourself, how to go wherever you want, how to get a taxi, whatever that you want to do, so you can do it by yourself. And I started thinking, well, dang, if you can cross a city by just using your other senses, like using your sense of touch with a cane, using your hearing, and you cross the city without getting hit by a car and knocking over too many people, surely you could use the same techniques to get across a canvas. If you just use those same ideas, the same ways of getting around, and you apply it to a canvas, it ought to work the same. So that's where I started painting like that. During that time though, there weren't really blind painters around. Like I said, there was one guy in Turkey, I think, that might have been painting at the time. So I thought I was crazy. I thought I was out of my mind. Like, a blind person painting, that's nuts. And so I didn't tell anybody that I was starting it. And but oh my goodness, it was the best thing that I could have done, because whenever you have a little bit of paint on the end of a brush, you're not thinking about anything in the past. You're not thinking about anything you lost. You're not concerned about the future. The only thing that's on your mind is getting that paint on the brush to where you want it to be, and that's all you're thinking. So it's forcing you in the moment, and that's something that I really needed at the time. So art for me, it was my way out of the darkness. Like, I had lost all hope. It was just my way of getting back to normal, of reconnecting with people. And that's still why I paint. And when I started, I would paint 14, 16 hours a day. Then I'd go to school, I'd go to the university, and I'd hang out with friends, and then I'd go back home, and then I would just paint. And I got very little sleep. And I still, to this day, I still paint 8 to 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But, I'm a little obsessed with art, Shaun.
Sounds like it. There are worse things to be obsessed with, to be fair.
That's true. That's true. At least it's healthy. That's true.
Okay, well, can you take me through the process of creating a piece of art?
You know, it's funny. Like when I first started, I thought whenever I first lost my eyesight, I didn't understand anything about blindness. I didn't know anything about blindness except for what I learned from TVs and TV shows and movies. And that's not a really great place to learn about blindness. So I was afraid that I would forget what color looked like. And I was afraid, I just had no idea what perception really was. And it's funny because the way that I create art now is the same way that I start whenever I was sighted, because art, the perception of it, the image that you have, it always starts in your mind. So whenever I start a painting, I always think about what it is that I want to paint. And because I have to do it in a certain way, I always sort of paint the painting in my mind, thinking about the steps that I need to take. Because, I have to be careful because, if I touch the wrong spot of the canvas, I'll smear the paint. I'll leave fingerprints everywhere. I'll do all this sort of stuff. So I need to think about how I'm going to approach a painting. But I always paint it in my mind first. And, and that's something that's true, even if, it's so interesting, I think, for like perception. For like a sighted person, if you're sighted, you think you're seeing with your eyes. And you are, in a way. But that image that you're seeing in your mind is actually in your mind. I mean, it's not your eyes. Which is, I know that sounds crazy, but the eyes are just taking in light waves. And then as soon as it enters the lens and hits the back of your eye, it's turning into an electrical chemical response that travels back to the brain, and then there's like 10 or 12 different areas in your brain that light up, and they start forming the image, but it's forming it in the same way that you would if you're dreaming or if you're imagining, which is the weirdest thing. So that's one of the things that I've had the hardest time with, is explaining to people who are sighted that a person who's blind can actually imagine. You can think of an image, but if you think about it, Shaun, like when you're dreaming at night and your eyes are closed, and you're fully asleep and you have a dream, it can seem extremely real. Like whatever it is that you're seeing in that dream, it feels like you're actually looking at it. And that's because that's the same part of your brain that's forming the image that it does when you're awake. Like your brain is like a computer, and it doesn't really care where it's getting the information from. That visual cortex, the occipital lobe back there. It could be getting information from your eyes, could be getting it from a memory, could be getting it from like parts that are making up your imagination. But it's putting that image together into your brain. It doesn't really care. The image is an image. So in that strange, so whenever you're blind, that part of your brain is still there. You're just not using your eyes. And it's so funny because whenever you imagine something, you're using, I forget it, something like 10 or 11 or 12 parts of your brain, but only one of them, like if you're using your eyesight, you just add one more area. So it's like you're using like 13 or something. But the other are exactly the same. So if you're imagining something, or if I'm imagining something, it's very, very similar. It's pretty much the same. So the way that I started painting now is really the same way that I did when I was sighted. I imagine it. The only difference is that I take in information in a different way. Like I can't use my eyes, so I take in information using my hands, like touch, like if I'm painting someone, if it's someone that everybody knows, like I've done paintings of lots and lots of different musicians, of like Jeff Bridges, Tony Hawk, other actors, other people. But if it's somebody that somebody knows, the way that I'll understand what they look like is I'll feel their face, and and I'll spend a little time with them. That way I can really feel like all the wrinkles in their face and all that, but then I can visualize it, and then I can go and then I can do the painting. So I'm sorry, I rambled on. I know you asked a simple question, and then I took it all over the place. I apologize.
No, don't worry. That was all super interesting. It is like crazy to think about that. Actually, like really leads really well into like another question I have. So like you saying that you can like just imagine like the picture just like anybody else can when they're seeing things. That is really interesting, but it makes like it completely makes sense. But that does make me wonder, can you like draw something that you haven't seen before or like felt before?
Yeah, well, it depends. Like, I mean, if I'm just making something up, I can. Um, yeah, I can. Like there's sometimes where I'll do a face and I'll maybe use the eyes from one person and the mouth from another person, but sort of. But the reason I started painting, the reason that I painted in the way that I did, that's sort of realistic, is because whenever I lost my eyesight, I felt like people didn't know what I knew. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of a better way to explain that. It's almost like when you're blind, sometimes people don't know what you understand because you can't see something. Which we even use the words like, oh, I see, when you mean like I understand, or if you don't understand something, you'll say, oh, I'm blind to it. So vision a lot of times is equated with understanding. So when someone's blind, you think, well, what do you really know about the world? Or so me painting realistically was a way for me to saying, hey, I'm still John in here. It's still me. So, I could feel a person's face and then I could draw them and paint them. And so I guess I got in the habit of just trying to paint things the way that they are in a way, but also in the way that they feel. So, I can't imagine things like I'll paint horses and dogs and people and all kinds of things, but I don't know. I get the most fun out of actually painting people that I know and dogs that I know. I'll feel their faces and so I get to paint that particular horse or that particular animal or thing. I don't know. Sorry.
I get what you're saying. That makes sense. No, that makes complete sense. That's really interesting. Do you prefer to draw mostly based off of doing what's the word, like portraits and still life of things that already exist, or do you do more based off of like your emotions?
It's generally based off of it's kind of both, which is the color from the paintings and all that comes from music. When I hear music, I see color. And whenever I was sighted, if I did a portrait of a person and the portrait, if it looked like them, like if I was drawing it and it actually looked like the person, then I think, oh, that's a good drawing. But it kind of shifted whenever I lost my eyesight because my idea of what perception is changed. Where, let's say if a family member of ours walked into the room, everybody would see the same person. Everybody would see the same face, the clothes, their hairdo, all this sort of stuff. So everybody's getting the same visual sort of information, but everybody also feels different about that person. Like you may see them, and if it's one of your family members, you have a whole lifetime of experience with them, so you have lots of different emotions and feelings. Someone else may think, oh, that seems like a really nice person. Somebody else might say, ooh, I don't think I'd want to hang out with them. It's completely different. So I got really interested in perception. So with my artwork, the drawing that I do, I try to do a simple drawing, where it's like the bones of a person or it's the bones of the painting, where the lines it'll tell you what it is or who it is. So you can look at it and you understand, but then the color is the emotion, the feeling. So how you actually feel about the person, or if it's a musician, I do a lot of CD covers and stuff for bands and different things, and so I'll listen to their music and I'll and maybe I'll feel one of their faces and I'll paint their face, but then I'll use the music to be the color for it. So it's a little of both, it's a little emotion. I like to mix them up.
That's really interesting.
Just take a little from the real world and then a little from the emotional sides of things, because we all live in this concrete world, but we also live in this world of emotion and feelings and ideas that we try to meld them together in our real life, and I'm trying to do that in my paintings, but it's a daily task. I'm still working on it.
Okay, that's really interesting. Another question I had, which you've answered, is why you use colors so much. But that makes it so interesting. I love that is super interesting.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have synesthesia?
Yeah. I had it all. I've had it all my life, and I thought everybody saw color with music, which is the most common form of synesthesia. But I never really thought too much about it. I mean, I always had it, but whenever I lost my eyesight, it became way more important because I wasn't getting color from my eyes. So I was getting color from my ears more, which is a funny thing to think of. But it helps so much with the artwork. Like most of the artwork I do is commissions. So I'm always about 6 months to a year out of commission. So and so I'm working on it. But like, let's say if a wife says, "Oh, I want to commission a painting of when I first met my husband," or this person that I love, and it's really hard to paint that feeling, of when they met. Like, it's hard for them to explain it. How do you explain that feeling, that emotion? And but it's much easier if she can say, well, here's a song that makes me feel that same way, or here's an artist and their music. It just puts me right in that same spot. So then I can take the music, I can listen to it in the studio, and in my studio I have the setup for like a small club in here, like lots of speakers. Full range of sound, so I can really have it thumping if I need to, but I can use that music though, and it'll give me that same emotional feeling, and then I can put that into the painting. So so it turns out like being able to use your ears for color really helps when it comes to painting.
Aha. Super interesting. Is there like a particular genre of music you tend to like have as a go-to for when you're painting?
No, it's funny. The more that I listen to music, and I get sent music from people all over the world, and I love so much different music. It's just incredible. It's just amazing. I'm always looking for new music, and especially if it's live. Like live music is my favorite. Like whatever they're playing. If it's polka, I don't care. Like if they're playing it and the band's really into it and the crowd's into it, then yes, like you get the best colors and the best energy. I don't sit around in my studio and just listen to polka music or something like that. But if it's live, then it's awesome, or if it's, if it's punk, if it's rock, if it's EDM, it's awesome. I mean, it just depends on the vibe that you're wanting to get, for a painting. So I listen to it all. One genre that kind of surprises me that I keep kind of going back to though is New Orleans jazz, and because it's jazz but it's brass and it's really it's just like it's in your face, which is really cool. And there's even a rap style that's kind of spun off that called bounce, which is really good. It's like rap, but then there's brass instruments in it, and it's just like dang, that's different. So
that actually sounds super cool. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's it goes from being, I got to be honest, when it comes to bounce, it goes from really cool to really bad. so you got to pick and choose.
Okay. Well, what would you recommend as far as bounce goes? What band, I should say?
Dang, I don't know. Gosh, there's a song by Cheeky Black that's really good, but it's really foul though. It's a lot of bad words. So if I don't, so you gotta, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, she's good, but also good Galactic. That isn't bounce, but Galactic is a New Orleans band, and they're really good because they're instrumentals. But they have all these different singers that'll come, and they'll get these singers that you've never heard of, and some that you have, and they'll and they love to play with Galactic, and it's really good because they're a great band for getting a really big range of different things. A lot of times you hear a band and every song sounds the same, which is cool if they're a good band, but after a while you think like, yeah, that's great, but it sort of sounds like that last song they just played. With Galactic, it can sound very, very different. So I'll give a plug for Galactic.
Okay, very cool. I might have to check that out. And if you guys also want to check that out, links to both of the bands that he mentioned will be in the description. If I can find them on YouTube or like wherever I can find them, there'll be a link there.
Cheeky, oh my goodness, she's nuts. So that'll be. She isn't big at all. Like in New Orleans bounce, like she but nowhere else. She's crazy.
Okay, awesome. That is super cool. Oh, okay. How do you choose colors? Or wait, no, that's that was a dumb question. We just talked about that.
No. Well, there is something about color I could tell you though, because one of the things I'm asked a lot is how can I tell the difference between color if I can't see them?
Yeah.
So and I do it through touch, but it isn't that every color feels different. I make the colors feel different. So I don't have like a superpower of being able to touch like a red shirt and say, oh, this is a red shirt. I can feel the vibrations of the red. It isn't anything like that. I actually one of the wonderful things about paint is that paint's actually made up of stuff. So like to break paint down to the simplest way, it's a medium, which is just the sticky stuff that holds paint together, and then it's a color, which is the pigment. And there's more stuff that goes into paint, but really, it's basically it's color and then it's sticky stuff that won't let it fall off the canvas. So, those are the two things you need to make paint. Well, the great thing about the medium is that you can change it. So there's all these different mediums that you can add to paint. So I started with oils, but now I just paint with acrylics. I love acrylics, and acrylics has this huge range of mediums. So let's say if I have a white paint, I can mix a medium into it that makes it really, really thick. It can feel like toothpaste. Then for black, I can mix a different medium into it that makes it really runny and it feels like oil. So on my palette, I'll have this really thick paint and this really runny paint. And I know the thick paint's got to be white and the runny paint's got to be black. So it's really easy. It's really easy to be able to tell the difference. And if I want to mix them together, if I want a gray halfway between the white and the black, I just mix for the texture that's right between the two. So I mix them together and I just get that viscosity that's half as thick or twice as runny or whatever it is that I'm going for. And then I know what color it is. So that's one way. And that's the most fun way, really, is being able to mix it with the texture. And then when it dries, it looks like any other paint. Like you wouldn't know that it had been mixed differently, which was important for me because I wanted my art to at least match what a sighted person could do. So I didn't want my paint to look different. So when it dries, it looks normal, but when it's wet, it has this different quality to it. And but also though I use Braille, so I'll just Braille my paint tubes. So in my blue paint tube, like the cerulean blue, I'll write CB because I'm really lazy when it comes to Braille. I Braille the least amount of letters that I can. So I'll put CB and I know okay that's cerulean blue. This is phthalate cyanide. This is cadmium this or that, and so I can write that on there. And then and another way of doing it, it's just a recipe. So it's just like if you're baking a cake. So like if I know okay it's 9 parts of white in this and 1 part black, that's always going to make this shade of gray. If I do 5 parts white, 5 parts black, it's going to make this different shade of gray. And it's just like if I was throwing in all the ingredients to make a cake, if I put all the ingredients together, the cake may be okay, it may be bad, but you're always going to end up with some kind of cake. You're never going to end up like with scrambled eggs or something. So there's lots of different ways to be able to handle color. And that one way with the texture, I actually have a workshop, and I've done this I've worked with museums for about 15 years. I worked with the Metropolitan, the Guggenheim, dozens of museums all over the country. And there's one workshop that I do, and where I blindfold everyone, and then I have them paint the way that I paint. In about 5 or 10 minutes, I have people actually painting and being able to tell color. And it's a lot of fun. It sounds like it would be hard to do, but it's so much fun because I get the blindfold on and I give everybody some instructions, and they have a raised line drawing where you can actually fill the lines on the drawing. In about 5 or 10 minutes, everybody's painting, and you just hear all these people going, oh, as it kind of dawns on them because they're feeling the paint, they're feeling the lines, and then they start putting it together. It's just incredible what the human brain can do. I think it sounds like it would be hard, but once you get started, there's some little tips and tricks that make it a lot easier. So I went off on. I just go crazy on this. I'm sorry. I just ramble all over the place. I get so excited when I talk about art, Shaun. I apologize. You ask one question and I end up talking about something completely different.
No, don't worry about that at all. Honestly, if you just answered my questions and then stopped, I would run out of questions far before we are at near the time that this should be. So I'm very happy you're rambling.
Well, thank you. Well, good deal.
And it's also just super interesting to hear all of this. How could someone get into one of your workshops?
It just the workshops are always free. So it just depends if and I always make it a point. Like if I'm working at a museum, if I'm working at a gallery, if I'm working with a gallery, I make them do workshops. It's one of the contingents of having me go there is that they'll put on workshops. So it's just if I'm showing there, and so I don't really do art lessons or anything like that. But if I'm working, if I'm working in a museum in a town, then I'll generally do some art workshops with different charities and nonprofits there, just for the fun of it. So it's kind of hit and miss with that. Every Tuesday on Facebook, we just do a live stream, which is really, really silly. It's really it's just hanging out in the studio and chatting. And sometimes I'll do like a little like a painting thing where I'm like, okay, let's paint this. But most of the time, it's just hanging out in the studio, chatting about whatever and playing some games and stuff, and maybe giving away some art. But but I don't know, with the workshops, it's just sort of hit and miss, really, because I don't have anything scheduled right now because of COVID. I've been doing a lot of workshops over Zoom, so I'll work with schools and I'll talk to classrooms and museums and things like that. So, but it's a ton of fun. I love doing the workshops. So I can't wait to get started with them again next year.
All right, that's super cool. Sounds like it would be an awesome workshop.
Oh, it's always fun. It's brilliant. I love going into a museum because they're always so stuffy, and then we'll do these workshops and we just have a group of people going through the museum just laughing and having a really good time and with the museums too. It's really nice because they have amazing art from these incredible painters. So we'll go through the galleries and we'll look at some of the artwork and we'll describe it. And I've done workshops in there where, like, if it's Italian art, maybe we'll bring Bellinis. So if somebody's over 21, they can have a Bellini while they're looking at the Italian art. They have some Italian food. I've done them where like there was once, like, it was an old Spanish painting of these people doing the tango. So I had some dancers come in and they actually dance for us while we're looking at the Spanish art. And there was once there was a painting of a pope. So I had an actor come in and portray the pope. He wasn't the Pope, but it was a lot of fun because you could ask him questions and he would try to answer. So, just anything to make it more interesting and fun. We'll because art is action. Painting is a verb. And museums have turned into this place where it's almost like it's like a church or a quiet space. Where people just sort of murmur. They kind of walk through. They shuffle through. No, everybody's afraid to make noise. So usually when I go to a museum, it's a lot of painting, a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, and it just makes it more like it should be, I think.
Okay, that's great. That is super fun. I would enjoy the museum a lot more if that was what my experience was.
Right? Yeah.
So that actually leads me to this question. Can you experience other paintings done by other people still?
Yeah. So I love going to galleries and museums, and especially with my wife because she's really good at describing things. She has a master's in design, and she just has a great eye when it comes to art. So she'll actually describe the paintings to me in a way that it really helps me to understand it. Which is brilliant, and also a lot of times I'll be able to touch the painting. So it depends on if a painting's on loan to a museum, or if it's like a private collector. I've been able to touch Van Goghs and Monets, Picassos, and stuff from private collections, which is brilliant because you can actually feel the brush strokes. Like you can feel where the bristles are actually cutting through the paint, and it's just incredible. I mean, because on some paintings you can tell because if it's a stippling, then their hand is going up and down right here. So hundreds of years ago, like Monet's hand was right here and it had to be in this position, or this other stroke where it's sort of a languid kind of a slow sort of stroke going through, and you knew that whenever the painter did that, he had to be calm. There's no other way to make a stroke like that. So you almost can step into their mental state and understand what it is they were feeling when they were doing the painting. And even though I'm a nerd and I've taken every class I can on art, and I've talked, I've read all the books I can on color theory and everything else, I've learned more from art from other artists than I have from anyone else. Like contemporary artists, where I can go to an art show, and usually artists are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and they'll actually let me touch their paintings, so I can feel their brush strokes. If it's a type of art that has brush strokes, or if it's raised up a little bit. So, and if not, then they'll at least describe to me what's there and what it is they were trying to achieve and how they went about it, and it's just incredible. it's funny whenever we think about painting and about artwork, we've reduced it just down to the visual world, really. Which is like you were saying before, in museums where everybody kind of walks through, everybody's quiet. We're not using all of our senses. We're just, people are just using their eyesight. But art is supposed to reflect life. It's supposed to reflect all the good things and everything about life. Like, it's the truest expression that we have about every idea, emotion, feeling that we have. And yet, when we experience art, all we're using is our eyesight, which is, just seems strange, in a big way. So, so actually being able to go in there and being able to use our hearing, our like a lot of the walks that I do through museums and stuff, when we're talking about the artwork, we'll actually bring things for people to taste, to smell, to feel, to touch, to listen to move at, to get in the same positions of the people in the paintings, just everything we can to really engage all of our brain. And it, it just makes the art so much better, so much more engaging and interesting.
Yeah, that is super interesting. Very sorry about my dogs, by the way.
Oh no! Hey, dogs are bright. I have a seeing eye dog, and she's currently snoring. I don't think you can hear her, but she's down by my feet. She's always there. Her name is Eagle, and she's a sweetheart, and she's the smartest dog in the world. But she's currently unconscious, asleep. What kind of dogs do you have?
Oh, I have Yorkie poos, mixed between a Yorkshire and a poodle.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're super cute, but very, very loud. I'll probably just cut out that part of my audio. Thankfully, that is a nice thing about recording on different audio tracks. But yeah, I actually, at my university, we have a program called... Maybe I shouldn't include what the name is. I'm probably going to take that out so I don't get doxxed. But we have a program for fostering and training service dogs. And I'm a secondary sitter for an organization near there, meaning like there's a foster on campus who has a dog with them at all times to like help it socialize when it's like just in the beginning of its training. And whenever they need to not be with the dog for any reason, like they have a lab to go to that would be dangerous for it, etc., they have me take care of it. And it is really nice. It is so interesting, like training and taking care of service dogs.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's really great that you do that.
Yeah, it is a great experience. What's it like having a service dog?
It's really good. I traveled with a cane for about 8 years, and generally with my work, I before COVID, I would fly about twice a month, sometimes more, giving talks and doing shows and stuff. And with my cane, I would travel all over the country. A lot of times it was just me. Sometimes I would have someone that would go with me. But with a guide dog, it's completely different. I mean, it's so much easier. It's just ridiculous. Like, and also it's like having a best friend. Like, I have a shadow with me all the time. Like, so one thing about having a seeing eye dog is like you gain like 40 pounds immediately, or 50, or how much ever they weigh, because they're always there. But they're brilliant. And like with a cane, it's awesome. And you have to have really good cane skills before you can get a guide dog. Because it's you that's controlling the guide dog. You have to be able to tell them what you want and be able to cross streets and all this sort of stuff. But with a guide dog, though, like going into crowds and things is incredible. Like with a cane, you have to trail walls and then going, like trying to cut through a room through a crowd. It just means you're tripping a lot of people. It's a little difficult. You got to try to stay on a straight line. With a guide dog, you can just say, go forward, and she'll find the best way to get through the crowd, and she'll zip you through it. And another thing about the guide dogs we have now is they're different than the way they used to be. Like the old guide dogs used to do a thing called a route, and all they would do is route. So maybe they could take you to a bus stop, or they could take you to work or to a coffee shop, maybe to a place to get an Uber or something like that. But that's kind of it. But like the new guide dogs are fines. So let's say if I'm in New York and I'm giving a talk, and I'm at a hotel. With a whole lot of elevators, only one button, I can ask Eagle to find the elevator. She'll find them wherever they are, and if I ask her to find the button, she'll put her nose right underneath the button for the elevator, so to show me where it is. If I'm in the airport and I want to find the men's room, she knows the difference between a men's bathroom and a ladies' bathroom. It's kind of like how a bomb sniffing dog or drug sniffing dog, they're trained to find that. Mm-hmm. She's trained to know the difference between a men's bathroom and a ladies' bathroom. And she'll find it, even if it's gates and gates away, in the bathroom. She knows. You can ask her to find like a urinal, the stall, the trash can, the sink. She knows what all this stuff is. If you're traveling around, you want to, if you have your smartphone with you and you want to go to a coffee shop, you're at the hotel and you're bored, you can ask the phone. Where's the closest coffee shop? Walking directions, and then you just tell Eagle like, okay, Eagle, go forward, find left. The phone is telling you where to go, and you're just telling Eagle, or your guide dog. It's just incredible what they can do. And then you get there, it's like, Eagle, find the door. Eagle, find the counter. Eagle, find a chair. And then she'll find a chair at an empty table, which is something that Eagle does. My first guide dog that I had, at first she had to learn to find an empty table because she would always find a chair at a table with other people. So sometimes at a coffee shop, I would just, if everybody's really quiet, everybody's kind of like doing their own thing. I would sit at a table and I might be there for a minute before they notice that I'm there. And so they go, oh, hi. It's like, I'm sorry. So it's kind of weird. And then at the airport, she'll remember what seat I was sitting at. So before with the cane, like I would go, like I would have somebody that have to take me through security, and they would show me where my gate was. And with a cane, I would just have to stay there. I would sit in my chair, and I was kind of rooted to that chair because I didn't know what I couldn't really explore much with a cane in a place like that where I didn't know. But with a guide dog, she'll remember that that's my chair. So if I want to go shopping for my son, if I want to try to find a stuffed animal or a knickknack or something, I don't know, something to take home, I can go off. Or if I want to get a bite to eat, I'll just go off and and try to find a restaurant and just explore. And I know that when I say Eagle, find my chair, she'll remember the way back and she'll find the spot where I was sitting. So
wow, that is super cool.
It's just crazy, and that just scratches the surface. But I should say too that not every guide dog school trains for this yet. It's some of them are still training the old way, and which I think is so sad because, it's like if I go to a convention, I give a lot of talks. So if I'm giving a talk at a disability convention, and I'll see people with visual impairments that are using an old style guide dog. And then it's just like somebody's driving a Model T or something. It's and then I've got like the new space age guide dog. But I don't know. But also, so there's that. And then the other part of having a guide dog like Eagle is that she is just the sweetest dog in the world. She's just so kind. She's so amazing. And it makes it like whenever if I go into a school and if I'm giving a talk like to let's say an elementary school, and they put all the students in the theater or the gym or wherever to hold them, and then I walk in to give them a little talk, and they could care less that I'm there. All the attention's on Eagle, and which is brilliant. She's the best ambassador that you could have, for spreading disability awareness, and she's just awesome. So anyway, sorry for rambling on about dogs. I'm a fan of dogs, apparently, as you can tell.
No, I completely get it. I'm a huge fan of dogs as well. I love them so much. I started helping train service dogs because I missed mine so much at college.
Oh man, that's awesome. That is so important. It makes such a difference whenever you get a good service dog.
Yeah, and it is really fun to walk around with the dog at college. It's like if anybody listening to this, if you go to a university and you can find a program near you that does that, I highly recommend checking it out. It's like the commitment. There's a little bit of a commitment, but it isn't that bad, and it's well worth it.
Oh my goodness, I would imagine. I would imagine that like if you want to make friends at college, that's probably the way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
to be the person in the class with a cute dog.
Oh yeah, easily. In our sign language class, which is ironic, in our sign language class, somebody actually would often bring in a dog. And nobody would learn anything that day because we would all just be looking at the dog the whole time. It makes everything so much happier then.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Let's see. I'm kind of through the bulk of my questions at this point. That was a lie. I actually have a few other things. Okay. So what if you well, actually, let me ask this in a better way. If you could choose to regain your eyesight, would you want to?
Yeah, I sure would. But it depends. Like if it was if it's sort of like a magic sort of thing where you can go back in time and never have lost your eyesight. because I wouldn't do that, and that's not even a hard decision because I learned so much about myself and I changed so much. I think in a positive way. It was really really hard. It was the hardest thing that I've ever went through, but it changed my perspective on life and my perception of things, and and that I think has made me a different person. Hopefully a better person. But if I could get my eyesight back now and still keep all everything that I learned, I definitely would. But also, if I could get like X-ray vision, I would do that. If I could fly, if I could do anything like that would be great. Or super hearing, or anything that adds to the experience of living would be awesome. but it's funny. I guess I've been visually impaired so long, and I've adapted to it. That after adapting, I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything. Like I don't wake up in the morning and say like, "Dang, if I was only sighted, then I could be happy today" or something. It's I don't feel that way at all. I don't really think about it like that. I did at first, of course. I was so angry and I was so depressed, and I didn't see how I'd be able to do anything in my life. I didn't see how I'd be able to, have reach any goal or have anything new, or all hope was gone. And that was just a lot of anger and depression, and it's normal, and I thought being blind made me different than everyone else. And then after being able to work with different people through art, and I've been able to work with soldiers with PTSD and children with autism and adults with Alzheimer's and all these different groups, I started to realize everybody has something in their life that they have to deal with, and it doesn't have to be a disability, but there's something in their life that just seems bigger than they are. It could be like the death of a loved one. It could be, they're like their career suddenly ended, and they don't know what they're going to do, and they feel like a failure, and that's just insurmountable to them. It feels like, so everybody has this thing that they're having to face. So I came to the realization, I think, that actually losing my eyesight, it made me more like everyone else than different. So we all have stuff that we're trying to deal with, and mine was vision, but I was fortunate to have people that believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself, and I was able to work through that, and and I'm happier today than I've ever been in my life, sighted or not, and and I feel really like I feel blessed to be able to be a professional artist, like we're working in the career that I love. Every day I wake up, and I'm just so happy to be able to do what I want to do, and be able to have a family to do it, share it with, and it's just and have friends, and I started painting to connect with people, and it blows my mind that I've actually connected with people.
Okay, that is really nice to hear. I know, I'm not sure if it's the same way in like the blind community, but I know in the deaf community, they have instead of like going deaf, they call it deaf gain, because you gain like all this experience of the culture from the experience of losing your hearing, and like paints it as less of a negative thing and more as a positive thing, like this whole new experience and view on life. And I think that's really cool. I agree with that a lot.
Yeah. Deaf culture. Sorry, can't talk all of a sudden. Is definitely a thing. They are brilliant in how they do that. It's just incredible, and I haven't seen that with any other group really. At the level that it is with the hearing impaired, and it's incredible. But yeah, it's something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Is it not the same way with like the blind community?
Nah. Not, I mean, not as much with that, and I think part of it is also a lot of people who lose their eyesight are older, and there's this idea, I think, with vision where if you can't see, then you can't do anything. So a lot of times when people lose their eyesight, there's a lot of depression. There's you're sort of trapped in your apartment or your house or wherever it is that you live. Like you can't even get around. You start having trouble like feeding yourself. You have to learn new ways to do everything, like how to cook, how to sew a button on, how to wash your clothes, how to be able to fill your cup with water. You just have to learn all these different things. And for a lot of people, it just seems insurmountable. But then there's this, if you're able to learn, the O&M and all this, then you're able to reach this level of independence where you can do anything that you want. But it's just I don't know. It's really hard, I think, with the visually impaired community, because there's so many people that get in that and the depression and all. It makes it where it's hard for people to get out. So I get really excited whenever I run into someone out and about that has a cane or has a guide dog. I'll buy them a drink, I'll buy them a cup of coffee, whatever, because it's just brilliant. It's like, yes, this is somebody that has gone through an intense amount of work to be able to just be out in public and be able to travel and independent, and so I don't know. It's a little different with the different communities, and it's different. Like let's say if you have epilepsy or another form of a hidden disability, it can be a little different too, because a lot of times, if your disability is hidden, then you don't have that camaraderie, I guess. Because you can hide it a little bit. You're always afraid it's going to come out. You don't know when it's going to happen. So it's really, really special. I love going to conventions and hanging out with people who are deaf, because they're always so upbeat. I feel. I don't know, but that maybe that's just my perspective on it. But I would always yes, like if I get sat at a table with people who are deaf, I'm like, yes, this is going to be a good dinner. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I'm like, as I mentioned, I'm like in that sign language class. I'm learning a lot about deaf culture right now, and it is just so interesting and unique. I really love it. I'm actually considering becoming a sign language interpreter because of
awesome.
it. Like, just speaks to me in a different way. Yeah, like this entire interview, I've just been signing random words I see around the place. Just something to do with my hands. But I'm not super good at it or anything. But it's really cool.
That's awesome. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, here's a question. Okay, I'll ask this question, and then I will ask like the final question to wrap things up.
Cool.
So this was something I think I want to say it was, let me actually check, because I want to name this person. I believe it was, no, I can't find it now. Okay, I can't find it. Never mind. Still ask the question, but I can't find who asked it, unfortunately. But one of the artists I asked, wanted me to ask you: has anyone ever like accused you of faking?
Oh, no. Well, it's funny. One of the most common question that's asked to any blind person is are you really blind? Because it's it's like if you don't understand O&M, you don't understand how a person who's blind gets around, which is completely understandable. Most people only know about blindness through TV shows and movies, and that is it's hilarious. Most of that, there are some good ones, but most of that though, it's like if you're on a TV show and somebody loses their eyesight, it's like their mom will walk into the room and they'll hear her and she'll say, "Oh, this is your mom." They're like, "Oh, who are you?" And it's almost like they've been hit on the head. It's like, no, you just lost your eyesight. You know who your mom is. Like even if if you're let's say if you're in a room and it's dark and your mom walked in and she talks to you, even though you can't see her, you're still going to know it's your mom. You're not going to think, who's this stranger? Who's this crazy person that just walked into my house? And that's the way it's sort of portrayed though on TV and movies. So whenever you see a person who's visually impaired and they can actually leave their house and cross an entire city by themselves, crossing streets, going down sidewalks, 4-lane roads, heavy traffic, they're able to find like let's say if they're going for a cup of coffee and they find the coffee shop and they get in, they go up to the counter, they order coffee, they go to a table and they sit down and they're just using a cane. You think, how in the world surely that person can see something? And sometimes they can. There's lots of different types of visual impairment, but they're not using their eyesight really to get around. And you think, well, how in the world can you even do this? So but it's you just gotta know it's just it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of little steps to get there. So there's ways to accomplish all that, and it isn't really hard. It takes a lot of practice, and you have to learn the skills, but it's not really that hard. So So the main thing that most people are asked who are visually impaired, and it's kind of a running joke with people who are visually impaired, is what's the most common thing you're asked is like, are you really blind? Because, if you're sitting in a coffee shop and there's nobody around, you're like, well, who in the world helped you to get here? And it's, it's funny because like if you can travel independently, it's kind of funny. With me, I became the world's first blind muralist, and I painted a 737. I've worked on 4-story murals. I've worked on murals all over the place. So whenever I'm standing in front of a mural, let's say like it's like a 4-story mural in Dallas, and then people see that, you can imagine if people are surprised that a person who's blind can go into a coffee shop and order a cup of coffee, what they feel when I'm standing in front of a mural that I've just painted on a building like that. It's like, well, my goodness, how did you do that? But it's the same sort of answer, it's like, well, you break it down into really little, in a baby step. So I have ways that I can work to be able to do that. And, and I can't paint every mural and I can't paint everything, but, if I get a project, I'll break it down and I'll see what I can do. And then I'll, see if it's possible. And then I'll start it's like one little step after another. So, it's funny. I started painting murals because I do a lot of work with different groups with disabilities and not, but to help spread disability awareness. The first mural I did was it was for World Sight Day, and it was in New York, and I painted the mural to celebrate World Sight Day because a mural had never been painted before. So I worked out some ways that I would be able to do it, and then I've been doing them ever since. But they are a ton of work.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. That is a huge canvas.
Yeah, and that was sort of the thing, because in my studio, even if I'm painting a really large canvas, like I have a 4-foot canvas right next to me, like an 8-foot canvas next to that I'm working on. Even if it's a big canvas, you can still you can take a step or two and touch it. But if you're working on like an 80-foot wide by 80-foot tall wall or something, it's nuts. You can't, you're on a boom lift and you have a radio and you're being kind of put all over the wall on it, and so but there's ways to be able to do that though. So I break it all up but it's definitely a challenge, but that's why I started doing them, just to see if I could.
Okay. Wow. That is super interesting. That's crazy.
Life is strange, man. It's funny, whenever I first started painting, I never thought anybody would see a painting of mine. I never thought about it. And then like two years ago, I was made a cultural ambassador for the United States, where they'll send you out to be like an ambassador of the arts to other places. And
really?
And I thought, man, that's so cool that, like, I don't know, that like the USA, like the States would actually think, that they want you to represent art, that they want you to talk about art and to take culture to other places and talk about it. And I thought, man, this is so brilliant, because, we've gone from a time when there weren't people who were visually impaired painting to a time when, to now where, it's becoming more of a normal kind of thing. I know, like I've taught painting. We're teaching painting for children who are blind. And we've done it in Brazil. We've done it in about, gosh, I don't know. I've done it personally in about 7 different states here in the U.S. for schools for the blind. But then that's being taken to all the different states with different programs. But children who are blind are starting to learn how to paint. And you would think, well, that's nice. It's a good hobby. But it's hugely important. It's amazing, because the way that I paint is using the O&M skills, like those cane skills that we were talking about, that let you be able to travel independently. Mm-hmm. So all these children are learning their O&M skills really early. And their ability to get around, it just explodes. Like in a couple weeks of them painting, of bringing art into their lives, they're able to get around their classrooms easier. They're able to remember like where their cup is, their fork is, because they're building these really complex spatial maps in their brains. And it's amazing how art is just making lives better. I don't know. I get the tingles whenever I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is super interesting. I know I said I was going to wrap this up around this point, but you've really made me want to ask, what's it like being a cultural ambassador?
It was really cool, and then COVID hit, so then it was just Zoom. so it was cool.
That is
yeah. We went to Brazil, and we did some things there, and And that was really fun. But then COVID hit, so it's just a lot of Zoom stuff. But that's cool. So it's it was nice. It was really nice being asked to do that. But I don't know. It's just a great way to spread disability awareness and also to have people. Even if disability awareness isn't your thing, if you never think about disability, but you're into art, it's a whole different way of understanding art. Because I think when we think about painting, we just think about vision, and painting isn't about vision. It's about experiencing the world. It's about understanding the world and all the emotions, all of our ideas. And that's the thing that makes us human. That's so. I don't know. I think being able to spread visual art as a non-visual person, it just opens the whole the conversation of what is art, what is visual art. So I like doing that. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is super neat. Wow. All right. Well, okay. Last question I'll ask you. This is what I ask everybody at the end of these interviews. What if you could have do you have one piece of advice for every other artist and creator in general listening?
Yeah, fail a lot, and be okay with failing. Like you need to fail. Because if you're not failing, then you're probably not trying enough new things. And I know that sounds weird, but I've been fortunate to be able to meet some people that I really admired, like some actors, some musicians, some athletes, just some incredible people that are at the top of their field, at what they do. And it's so strange because I'll ask these people well, what is it? If you could give any bit of advice, what kind of advice would you give? And almost every time I get that same thing back is you got to be okay with failing. You've got to be okay with putting yourself out there, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, because the only thing really holding us back is ourselves. Most of the time, that's it. We're afraid of trying something new. If we don't get it right away, then we won't keep doing it. But you got to keep plugging at it. I think the smartest thing I did when I started painting after losing my eyesight was I said I wasn't going to judge anything I did for a year. And that's really hard to do because you're constantly wanting to judge yourself, especially if you're a creative person. You're creative people are some of the nicest people you ever meet. They're so nice to everybody else around them, but they're also some of the people that are the hardest on themselves. So they'll really, like if you make a mistake, you're like, oh man, that's so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'll never get this. It'll never work. And you just got to throw that away, and just be okay with failing over and over and over again. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the process, is trying, is giving it a go. So with a painting, I'm going to make hundreds and hundreds of mistakes on every painting that I do. And every time I make one, I try to correct it. I keep going. At the end of it, hopefully I'll end up with a painting that I really like, that I think, it worked. If I don't, I still learned a lot from that painting. And then I'll just put the painting on a rack that I have in my studio called the Rack of Shame, where it's all these paintings that haven't worked out. But I don't really care. It's like I still had a great time doing it. It was still very therapeutic. And I learned a lot from that painting. I learned some things of what not to do. And then the next painting that I work on, I'm a little bit better at, and I can take those lessons. So whether the painting works out or not, it's still a success because I was able to go through that process, so I don't hate myself, or I don't really get down on myself if it doesn't work out. I really want it to succeed, so I've always got that motivation to kind of push harder. But I'm okay if I fail, because even failure with that sort of attitude is a success.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that is super good advice. I could not agree more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I could not. I always think it's way better to fail a lot. I think it's better to keep trying new things and failing them over and over again, rather than to just take one thing and keep working on it until it becomes good, even if you're like just doing the same thing over and over again because you're good at that. It's just staying the same is staying static hurts a lot.
Yeah.
And it always just stumps your growth.
Yeah. It's really good for your ego, because if you're good at something and you keep doing that thing that you're good at, then you feel really good. You're like, oh, I'm really good. But you never grow. You never. It's kind of like if somebody is an expert of something, and it's like, oh, I'm an expert about that. I always hate to hear that, or because I think, well, maybe they've stopped growing in it. If they feel like they're an expert, then they're not really taking a lot in anymore. And so, but it doesn't always mean that. But always have to question it. So if somebody calls themselves an expert on something, I always think like, I have to make sure that they are still growing, that they're still learning.
Aha. Yeah. All right. Really good advice.
Oh, thanks, man.
And yeah, of course. And just to satisfy public spam account, because I know you're listening to this and hoping I'm going to ask this. John Bramblitt, what is your favorite type of cheese?
Oh my goodness, I'm boring when it comes to cheese. Like I like cheddar. So I guess cheddar it's my go-to. I live in Texas, and we use it on a lot of different quesadillas, tacos, fajitas, you name it. We'll sprinkle it on there.
Okay, no, fair choice. A classic choice. All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for listening, and thank you, John, for coming on the podcast. It was
thank you so much, Shaun. I had a great time.
I'm really happy to hear that. I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the 11th episode of the Create Stuff podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on another podcasting platform such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you should follow me or leave like a rating or whatever it is you do on your specific platform. It really helps me a lot. Seriously, if you can, just go click it real quick. It takes so little of your time and it'll affect you so little in the future. And if you, for some reason, decide that you're unhappy with what you did, just take it off. But seriously, it helps me a lot when you do that, just in the algorithm. So yeah, thank you. Also, please do consider donating to one of the nonprofits in the description, all related to the blind in some way. I think that there's some really cool organizations, and I think they fit the theme of this podcast really, really well. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you. If you can't do that, don't worry about it. I'm going to quickly shout out just 3 little things that some cool people I know have made. Though before that, this is not one of the things, but you should check out my other podcast, SCP Authors Anomalous. If you don't know what the SCP Wiki is, I explained it all in episode 0, but it's essentially just really cool creative collaborative writing project that takes place inside of a website called the SCP Wiki, which has a ton of different genres within it, though it's more, I would say it has mostly like horror and science fiction elements. You can really find any genre anywhere there, like any genre of any type, just because of how incredibly vast it is. On that podcast, I talk to authors and we read out their works on the podcast and discuss them. It's really fun. It's a lot less edited than this is. It's a little bit more raw, and I've been enjoying recording it a lot. A lot more episodes are coming out of that. It's really cool to meet these people and talk to them and hear what they have to say about their works. So yeah, if you like Create Stuff, you might like that, because it does, especially if you're a writer. I think you should just give it a shot. First off, my good friend and a previous guest on this podcast, Moderately Mediocre, recently released their first album on Spotify. It is called Parasocial Paranoia. Link will be in the description. It's very, very cool, and I helped them come up with a name for it, and I'm quite proud of it. You should check it out. Second thing, someone I know from the musical, who I haven't really talked to yet, but I think is very cool, named Rainbot, has been releasing some awesome songs recently. I hope I pronounced their name right, but a link to their channel is in the description. You guys should really go check them out. They have some awesome Dream SMP songs that they've released recently, and I like them a lot. And one last thing, my friends Ian Has Opinions and Moderately Mediocre have both released 2 songs together. One of them is Legacy, based off of Slimesicle's lore in the Dream SMP. That was by Moderately Mediocre. And the other one is All Just Memories by Ian Has Opinions, based off of Sapnap's lore. They're both really good songs, and they leaked them both to me, which made me very, very happy. I think they're really cool. You should go check them out. Links are in the description. Thank you so much for coming to watch this episode of the Create Stuff podcast. I'm going to try and branch out from having just a Dream SMP people at the end of this, but that's just kind of who my friends are at this point, mostly because I get these from Lemanberg the Musical people, because that's just a really cool crew. Yeah, thank you guys all so much for coming. Check out some other episodes if you have some time, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Oh, and since you actually decided to listen to this far, I don't usually do this, but I would like to give you all a little secret, a little something you can't tell anyone else. You can't tell anyone else about this. You're not allowed to. This is secret. It stays between you and me only. Only you and me. This is a leak that I have not gotten permission to give, but I'm giving it to you because you listened this far, viewer, and I think that's really, really cool. Here's the leak. I am starting 2 new podcasts. I brought this up. I brought up that I'm starting the 3rd and 4th podcast on my Discord channel, I think. I'm starting 2 new podcasts. One of them is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast with some really, really cool people with a fun little gimmick that involves, well, let's just say, usually a D&D game is run by one person, but you know, okay, we're gonna mix that up a little bit. And the other thing, 4th podcast, let's just say it's really stupid. It's like really, really stupid, and will be very, very casual, but will be also very, very fun. If you enjoy comedy podcasts, you'll probably enjoy that, because I am doing a podcast with 2 very, very funny people that is significantly less professional than my other ones. Not that SCP and Authors Anonymous is super professional anyways. Not as professional as Create Stuff, I guess I should say. Not that Create Stuff is also like really, really I'm gonna just stop. No, thanks. Don't link this. Bye-bye. I put my fate into your hands. If you betray me, I will never forgive you. Bye-bye.